Hi, I am Aditya Basavaraj Mali, studying in Sri Venkateswara College of Engineering, Bengaluru. Today we are going to discuss about Introduction to Probability Distribution. Probability distribution is a mathematical function that describes the probability of the different possible values of variable. Probability distributions are often depicted using graphs or probability tables. A probability distribution is an idealized frequency distributions. A frequency distribution describes a specific sample or a data set. It's the number of times each possible value of a variable occurs in the data set. The number of times a value occurs in a sample is determined by the probability of occurrence. Probability is a number between 0 and 1 that says how likely something is to occur. 0 means it is impossible. 1 means it's certain. The higher the probability of a value, the higher is the frequency in a sample. More specifically, the probability of a value is its relative frequency in an infinitely large sample. Infinitely large samples are impossible in a real life. So, probability distributions are the theoretical. They are idealized version of frequency distributions that aim to describe the population the sample was drawn from. Probability distributions are used to describe the populations of a real-life variables, like coin tosses or a weight of a chicken eggs. They are also used in a hypothesis testings. Example: probability distributions are idealized frequency distributions. Imagine that an egg farmer wants to know the probability of an egg from her farm being a certain size. The farmer weighs 100 random eggs and describes their frequency distribution using a histogram. Now we will discuss about random variables. Variables that follows probability distributions are called random variables. There is a special notation you can use to say that random variables for the specific distributions. Random variables are usually denoted by x, and the tidal symbol means follows the distribution. The distribution is denoted by the capital letter, usually the first letter of the distribution's name, followed by the brackets that contain the distribution's parameters. For example, the following notations means the random variable x follows the normal distribution with a mean of nu and a variance of sigma square. That is, x tidal n bracket nu comma sigma square. There are two types of probability distributions. One is discrete probability distribution and another one is continuous probability distributions. Probability distributions. A discrete probability distribution is a probability distribution of a categorical or a discrete variable. Discrete probability distributions only include the probabilities of a value that are possible. In other words, a discrete probability distribution doesn't include any value with a probability of a 0. For example, a probability distribution of a dice rolls doesn't include 2.5 since it does not possible outcome of a dice roll. The probability of all possible values in a discrete probability distribution add up to 1. It's certain that the observation will have one of the possible values. Probability tables. A probability table represents the discrete probability distribution of a categorical variable. Probability tables can also represent a discrete variable with only a few possible values or a continuous variable that's been grouped into a class intervals. A probability table is composed of two columns, the value of a class intervals and their probabilities. Probability mass functions. A probability mass function PMF is a mathematical function that describes a discrete probability distribution. It gives the probability of every possible value of a variable. A probability mass function can be represented as an equation or as a graph. The probability mass function of a distribution is given by the formula P of x is equal to k is equal to e raised to minus lambda into lambda raised to k whole divided by k factorial, where P of x is equal to k is a probability that a person has exactly k sweaters. And next one is lambda is a mean number of sweaters per person, and E is a Euclid's constant. Common discrete probability distributions. There are three types of distributions. First one is binomial, discrete uniform, and Poisson. Binomial describes variables with two possible outcomes. It's the probability distribution of the number of successes in n trials with p-probability of success. Example, the number of times a coin lands on a heads when you toss it 5 times. And the next one is discrete uniform. Describes the events that have equal probabilities. Example, the suit of a randomly drawn playing a card. Next, Poisson describes count data. It gives the probability of an event happening k number of times with a given interval of time or a space. Example, the number of text messages received per day. Next, continuous probability distribution. A continuous probability distribution is a probability distribution of a continuous variable. A continuous variable can have any value between its lowest and highest values. Therefore, continuous probability distributions include every number in its variable's range. The probability that a continuous variable will have any specific value is so infinitely smaller than it's considered to have a probability of 0. However, the probability that a value will fall within a certain interval of values within its range is greater than 0. Thank you.